All right. So today we are having April Dunnam join us to do a session on all the Copilot and AI goodness that you've been hearing about and all the AI rage that's been going around. So I'm pretty excited for that session. She did mention that she did have another meeting running, so she may be a little late, but we'll get started with some of the recent news and announcements, and hopefully we'll see her join. Oh, there she is. I see she's right here. Hey, April, thanks for joining us.
Oh, if I can come off mute, but hey, I made it. Glad to be
Yeah,
here.
well, glad to see you. I was just going to get started with some news and announcements, and then well, the floor is going to be open for you, and everybody's excited here to learn and watch all the Copilot goodness that you've got to share today.
Awesome.
All right, quick set of intros. This is our March edition of the Dallas Power Platform user group meetup. I am Geeta Silsilm. I am a solutions architect and a Power Platform lead at Artist Consulting, a Microsoft partner. We're based out of Dallas. Also a business applications MVP, and I try to share my trials and tribulations with the platform. So feel free to follow me. Always happy to help whenever I can. And I have my colleague here, Ben Beckman, who let him talk.
Thanks, Geeta. Glad for everybody to be here today and learn all about Copilot from April. I'll be the one that'll post the recording on the YouTube channel. So if it takes a little while, please complain to me and not Geeta. It is not her fault.
That was very kind of you, Ben. That's all right. We'll take the blame together. All right. So here's what we're going to cover for an agenda. We'll go through some recent announcements, and we'll have April go through a session, and then we'll open up the floor for an open forum for question and answers, so you can get your comments, thoughts, and feedback out here. And feel free to raise your hand in the chat, or maybe drop a question in the chat. And this is a user group for you guys to have the opportunity to share your comments, thoughts, and have the ability to also network with your peers in the space. So I will keep the announcements pretty quick because I know we all can't wait to see what April's going to show us. But OpenAI and GPT has been all the rage recently. All the benefits of both AI and low-code technologies in union has been tremendous for all developers. This union of these two sets of technologies provides a very intuitive and iterative experience for citizen devs, and by accelerating development for applications. And Microsoft's Power Platform specifically has been taking big steps forward with this next generation AI features for Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, and AI Builder. And they're all enabled by Azure OpenAI service. Now, this visual is a timeline of how they have been accelerating AI innovation with features released. They've announced AI Builder about 4 years ago. That was the first AI capability in Microsoft Power Platform, and then followed by Power Apps Ideas. That was about 18 months ago, and then and that was the very first infusion of generative AI in a commercial product in the Microsoft suite. And then we've continued to see Express Design come in Power Apps, and then also the Describe It and Let AI Build It feature in Power Automate late last year. Well, this March, we've seen two new announcements. One is the Power Virtual Agents, which is a low-code approach to building chatbots with an intuitive visual drag and drop approach. It allows you to, simplify your bot creation process. You're able to now use the power of next generation AI by connecting your bot to your most current and useful data sources like internal or external company websites. And the bot can, you can start using it immediately to use that data and start constructing responses when it sees a prompt from a user. And then the next piece of announcement that came earlier this March is that AI Builder has democratized the access to complex AI models for use in your apps and your cloud flows. It includes your models for category classification, object detection, prediction, sentiment analysis, to name a few. And then, of course, there has been an addition of a new Azure OpenAI service model that unlocks several ways for organizations to embed intelligent text generation features into Power Automate and Power Apps solutions with just a few clicks. And, April will have a lot of things for us to show, and we're probably going to see bits and pieces of each of these things that we've talked about shortly. This next announcement here is about modern controls in Canvas apps. They are now available through an opt-in preview option. These modern controls, think of them as more, focused and less cluttered designed controls that would support a much more richer interface and interaction of states and elevation within the controls. It does provide a very high usability baseline as you start building low-code apps. They are intended to be fast. They're built for performance. And then these controls are WCAG 2.0 compliant. WCAG stands for Web Content Access Guidelines. So they do have accessibility built in by default. And they have been designed with theming in mind. So they're not part of the initial launch. What you see right now don't have that yet, but that's in the works. So eventually you will be able to support theming and have per control, styling coming in soon. But I know the big question here is how can you start using them? So if you are a Power App maker, you can turn that on. It's a feature in your Power App Studio that you can navigate to. It's listed under preview features. And remember, this is still in preview. So in the preview features settings dialog, you'd have an option to turn that flag on. And then once you have that feature turned on, you should be able to see the list of controls on your insert pane, and you should be able to use them. So that's just a screenshot of the different type of controls that you have available today. And the screenshot, the first screenshot that you see with the little green progress bar is how your user experience is going to look like when you start using these modern controls. So this is something for you to definitely check out, play around with it and get ready for your implementations in live production use cases as soon as it's out of preview. Our next announcement here is the ability to have data-driven cards in Teams, but triggered from a Power Automate cloud flow. We had the announcement of cards for Power Apps, which was announced in a public preview, think back in September. And cards for Power Apps, think of them as mini experiences that empowers your users and developers to create interactive, embeddable, data-driven mini apps, or like micro applications that are lightweight and can bring context and actions directly into your team's conversations. Now, cards for Power Apps can now be used in flows using a new connector, and you have the Teams connector has updates to support the new card for Power Apps as well. And so the authoring experience has also been significantly improved. So it makes it much more easier to design cards to suit your respective business processes. But with these new features, now you're able to use cards to bring conversations and business process automation together like never before. So there's just a screenshot of how Cloudflow can look like. There's our connector where you can use to create a card instance, and you do see that it's still in preview. You're able to create a card, set up content for your body, and then you're able to plug in the output of that card into your poster card in a chat or a Teams channel action. And then on the left here is a visual of how a Power Apps card is going to look like in your Teams context. So that's something to check out as well. So it's still in preview. I will drop all the links right after we go through our announcements here for you to go take a look at it. So this next announcement here is about the new preview of Dataverse Solutions by Default capability for Power Automate Cloud Flows. This is something that can come in handy when you are looking to increase the manageability of your cloud flows and you want to take advantage of all the powerful capabilities that Dataverse has today, like connection references, environment variables, your Dataverse APIs, be it security roles, and also solution-based application lifecycle management. So there is a new environment setting that's available for admins to turn that on so that you can use this feature to enable all your cloud flows to be created in a default solution. And the requirement for that is that the Dataverse needs to be available in your environment. And then it's something that's available in your Power Platform Admin Center. So if you're able to go to the Power Platform Admin Center in your tenant, you're able to set that setting. And right now it's rolling out at the moment. And so if you don't see it, just give it another week. I think the announcement does mention that it should be available in the Europe and North American regions within the next week. All right, I think that is all the announcements that we have. I do want to call out a couple of events that are happening. We do have the Power Platform Conference happening in Vegas, October 1st to 6th. That's definitely, it's an event sponsored by Microsoft, and it's held in person. So 1, 2, and 6 are workshop days, and 3 to 5 are the conference days. So there's a link there if you'd like to register. And then April 4th, we have the Microsoft Business Applications launch event. So there's a link there for you to register. It's something that you can view online. And then also, every, I think monthly once, we do have a bunch of community calls that the Microsoft community team puts together. So that's the link that will take you to some of those schedules and invites that you can, the series of invites that you can load into your calendar if you'd like to pop in and learn more about how Power Platform enthusiasts and other peers in the space have been using the tools. All right, I will take a break there just to see if we have any questions. All right, I don't see any open questions there, and without any delay, I will hand it over to April. April is the principal Power Platform advocacy team lead, and she's definitely one of my favorite women in tech persons that I admire for her passion for what she does. And she's an avid YouTuber. She's got several content out there, and I'm sure if you're in the Microsoft space, you've probably heard of her and you've been watching her tutorials and learning how to do things. And I can't wait to see what she's got to show here. Thank you, April. Thanks for taking the time, and can't wait to see it. It's all yours.
Awesome. Thanks, Geeta. So excited. This is one of my favorite things to talk about as of late. So thank you so much for having me on here to talk about all the copilots and AI goodness that's coming down the road so far. All right, so I titled this session, You Get a Copilot, I Get a Copilot, Everyone Gets a Copilot, because it seems like copilots are everywhere these days. For this intro slide, so I interjected AI wherever I can in this presentation. So I actually created that image with the new Bing image creator. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely give that a try. It creates pretty decent images with the DALL-E model there. So I had just asked for an AI dancing, and it was the prompt I gave it, and I got this pretty cool image there. So give that a try, non-related to Power Platform though, if you have time. All right, so I want to cover now. Geeta gave us a really good overview of kind of what's happened so far with a lot of the AI announcements and what was just recently announced. So I'm going to take and expand on what she kind of just highlighted there and show you some demos and talk a little bit more in depth about some of the stuff. So, we all know the Power Platform, all the products that we know and love here with Apps, Automate, Power BI, Agents, and Power Pages. Now, take all that, being a core part of the Microsoft Cloud, but now we see copilots being interjected everywhere across the Microsoft Cloud. So this isn't just within the Power Platform. We saw Microsoft 365 Copilot. Of course, there's GitHub Copilot as well that kind of kick-started all the copilots that we see here. So we're definitely thoroughly in the era of copilots right now. So really what that means is AI being a real-time collaborator that generates content, that sparks creativity, and that completes work for us. So we're seeing this all across the ecosystem. I'm sure we'll just continue to see more and more innovations with all these copilots being interweaved into the entire Microsoft stack here. And I think this is really, game changing for development and the tools that we use here, because it really empowers everybody. So from technical workers, from pro devs with all the stuff that we can do in GitHub with Copilot, and now we have the like kind of assistant that they announced with Copilot X the other day as well, if you didn't see that announcement. So you can have the autocomplete of code basically with that, but then also now chat and kind of like ask me what this block of code does, and like all that kind of great stuff that we have with AI interjected there. And then now for like everyday end users with Bing and all this stuff baked into Edge, where we can have it, refactor and summarize a response, and all these great integrations that we're seeing across all the stack here. So what does this mean exactly for the Power Platform? So we're seeing a lot of this in low code, no code, and I know some of this was covered earlier, but again, just to kind of share the timeline of what we've seen so far. Obviously 2019, we saw AI Builder, and that brought a lot of AI innovation into low code and the Power Platform for the things that we could do here to bring more power to that. Power FX, we saw natural language with Power FX formula with Power Apps Ideas in 2021, as well as in Power BI with DAX Quick Create. Then we started seeing some things, late last year, as Geetha said, with Power Automate and natural language to flow and format data by examples, image to app capability using object recognition, cognitive services stuff to take an image and convert it to an app. And then now this year is where we really kind of saw the catalyst and the boom of all of this great stuff that has been built upon this with all these copilots for Power Virtual Agents, Power Automate, and Power Apps, and then AI Builder, OpenAI models. So this is all the stuff that we have. Let's kind of dive in, starting from, let's go all the way back to Power Apps Ideas and just take a look at what that is, what it does, and what it started giving us here with being able to speed up authoring with natural language. So this has been around a while now, but if you haven't checked it out, it's definitely something that is improving every day with the type of things that it can handle here. So now when we run an application and we say we want to go and add and search for somebody here, right? And get some information here and like type in a personal message and all of that, right? Send kudos and all that kind of stuff in this application. Maybe we want to change the way that data is formatted. So let's kind of segue in here. Now we have the ideas section to help us do that. So this is a gallery. We can want to maybe sort it. We can use natural language to say we want to sort this by created on ascendingly. And it can actually create the Power FX formula for us. So this is using kind of like the pros model to be able to format and suggest inputs here for Power FX formulas that we can put in there, and it just applies it to our on select in this case, or into our items view inside of Power Apps. So it's pretty cool. Lots we can do, as well as the format by example that's in there as well. The Power FX, if we want to say change the date, time field, or whatever we want to do. So that's been there a while. Don't want to spend too much on that because I want to show the cool new stuff here. But before we can move on, I do want to touch on Express Design too, because I think this is another thing that's often overlooked that's been there for a little bit now. It's pretty powerful, especially when we talk about the Figma integration, in my opinion. So we do have the capability to take an image. So we can upload a hand sketched image, or even if it's an existing paper process that we have and we convert that into a PNG or a JPEG, whatever it is, we can take the image, run it through the create from an image, and that spits out an application for us using Azure Custom Vision to identify the controls behind the scenes, computer vision for the text recognition, and then Dataverse to actually create the data schema for us based off of the sketch that we have. So we could do something as simple as a form like this for a registration sign up, and then we can do the image option, and we can go to next. We can upload and create a name for our image there, upload the file that we have, our hand sketched image. And it will actually go and use, again, that Azure Cognitive Services in the backend to identify all the components. So it's able to accurately tell that we have some labels on here, some text inputs, and some buttons as well, and even a checkbox that was able to identify there. So now we can take all of this, we can do an additional tagging if we want. If it didn't recognize something quite right, we can change that, say, to a dropdown, whatever we need to do. And that's the really cool part, is it can actually create the Dataverse table for us as well. And then we can tag and map and do all this assigning and everything, all with the wizard there. And then it creates the table and can create an app for us based off of this. So all with us just uploading an image, which is pretty cool. And we can kind of see the output of what it gives us. It created a form control for us with some buttons and everything, and even will bind that to our data source since it created the table for us in Dataverse, all from uploading it. So that's some pretty cool functionality. The same thing we can do. So this gets you, obviously we'll still want to do some tweaking to the UI. It just kind of gets us the bare bones of what we need here based off of what we uploaded. But if we really want to go like in and out from a design standpoint, that's where the Figma integration really comes into play. So with the Figma integration, now Figma, for those if you haven't used it, is a tool for doing UI mockups and things like that. So that's commonly used. So you can create your mockup of your design inside of Figma, and there's a Power Apps toolkit now in there that you can use. And you can take that, create the mockup in there, just copy the path of your Figma, and then import it inside of your Power App, and it will create a pixel perfect with all of your design elements and all that kind of stuff Power App for you based off of the design you have in Figma. So there's a few things like right now, like I know that it doesn't currently support, like really kind of taking an existing Figma file and making it work. You're better starting from scratch from like the Figma toolkit for Power Apps, but it works pretty well from what I've tested and what I've seen some people do with Figma in there, and it's pretty cool for creating an application that looks nice right off the bat with that integration. So definitely try that if you're using Figma with Power Apps. But now, moving on to what we probably all came here for, is to talk about all of the Copilot goodness here. So we already have Power Apps ideas. We're able to create apps from images and Figma files now. Now to take it even a step further, we have an integrated Copilot to help build apps and data schema just by describing what we need. So what does this look like inside of Power Apps? So with this now, again, this is in a private preview right now, so you have to sign up for it. But we'll have this new section on the home page of Power Apps where I have a text box that I can type in something like, I want an app to track my PTO request. And just by that prompt and pressing enter here, the Copilot, using all the OpenAI types functionality there in GPT, will go in and suggest a table schema for me in Dataverse. So I can see that it suggested a request type, and it puts some different types like vacation or sick leave, the date of the request, and the duration and a status. So quite a bit of what I would need to be able to track a PTO request, and even put in sample data so that I can visualize it for me. So now if this isn't everything that I need, I want to tweak it some more, it doesn't stop there, because you'll notice on the right-hand side, I have a Copilot baked in there. So I can keep interacting with this Copilot to tweak the table however I need. So maybe I see that I'm missing a start and an end date column for this particular table. I can just ask the Copilot to add those, and it'll go through, do its thing for a little bit. It takes just a little bit as you're working with the Copilot here and chatting with it, and it lets me know that I added that, and I can look at this real-time preview with the sample data in there and see that I added those columns for me. And there's even suggestions, if you notice on the left-hand side, of things that you can ask the Copilot to do. So I can change fields that it already created, like maybe I want those to be date and time, so not just date columns. So I can have and ask it to do that. It'll go through, do its thing again, and then we'll see that once it's done here, it's going to change those to include time as well. So really anything that you need to do to manipulate the data, you don't have to go into Dataverse and know the ins and outs. It's going to create and manipulate that data schema based off of whatever you put in. And if you want suggestions, like maybe you don't even know what else I would need to track for a PTO request app, it can suggest things like you might need a supervisor name, an approval date. Maybe you want to have a reason, to expand on the request or whatever it might be. I can simply select one of those that I want, and it'll incorporate the idea that it suggested for me in there. So we can just keep working with it as much as we need to refine the table that it has. And then once we do that, it'll go and we'll just click next, and it'll start creating our app. So that created the data model for us to store our data. And now it's going to create an application for us that's going to have a way that we can add, edit data, and see the data that's submitted. And the cool thing about the app it creates as well is it's responsive. It's utilizing containers. So out of the box, it's going to work seamlessly on your tablet, desktop, and phone devices. Now, the first thing you'll notice, though, is it doesn't take it to the traditional screen where we see like the gallery and all of that. We have this homepage that has an embedded Copilot. So the Copilot for Power Apps doesn't stop at the Copilot to actually create the app. We get an embedded Copilot to use in the context of the application, thanks to a new Copilot control that we have inside of Power Apps. So if we do a search here for Copilot, we'll see the Copilot control that's currently in preview. out there that we can embed on any application. And it automatically does that when you create an app through Copilot. So now we have the intelligence of Copilot to interact with the data in our app. So I can ask it anything about the data in the PTO list or whatever list I bind it to. It kind of works like a gallery where you bind it to a data source and it can do any of the smart AI stuff basically with that data. So I can ask it like how many items are in this table and it goes and returns that information for me there. You see suggestions below of things that you can ask it, like the average duration of request, what the most frequent request is, and all that kind of stuff that we can interact with it with. And I can just keep asking different things about my data to fine tune it, like what's the ratio of accepted to rejected PTO requests that are in here, and it can do that level of information as well. So this could really, you could see the potential of this, cut down on all of the programming basically that we have to do in a Power App to do searching and sorting and all that kind of stuff, because the Copilot control that's now going to be integrated in these solutions can handle a lot of that for us. And we can ask it whatever we need to know about the data, which is pretty cool. Now, it doesn't stop there though. So that I created an app with Copilot and it automatically added the Copilot control for me. But that control is available in any application now. So if you're in this preview and you have access to the Copilot, any app that you've created in Power App, you can embed this Copilot control in and start using. So this is an app I created a while ago that has helps me manage sessions. And I just simply went in and I enabled the upcoming feature, which is a preview feature, to the Copilot component. And now that enables that control inside of my application so I can have the power of Copilot in my app. So I added in that Copilot control. And now it's aware, I bound it to my session table in this case, which is Dataverse. But the cool thing about this control as well is it works with any data source. So I can bound this to a SharePoint list and it can search and get information about that list as well. So I can ask it things about session links, what's the most common type of session that we see here, and it lets you know it's a presentation. And I can keep asking it like maybe for suggestions. So for a conference app, I might want to know what sessions there are related to Power Automate. So rather than having to have to search through that, I can just ask the Copilot and it suggests all these sessions that have either Power Automate in the title or the description there. And same thing, ask sessions related to Teams or whatever we want to learn about, just keep asking the Copilot and we have all that information there. So it's, yeah, exactly like I see, it's like a mini bot personalized for app specific data. That's exactly what it is. So you can kind of see the power of what we can do with this. Now, the other thing you might notice on this home screen that I have kind of built here is we have the Copilot that I've interacted with, but to the right, I've actually embedded a Power Virtual Agent spot. So this isn't really related to the Copilot stuff, but it's rolled out at the same time as an announcement. So another upcoming feature that we have is a chatbot component. So now we can natively embed Power Virtual Agents bots in our Power Apps. So we can have the Copilot, which answers questions for us about the context of a specific data source, but then we can have a bot that goes out and does whatever we want to in the PVA bot and interact with that here in the application. So with the bot control itself, you just have to give it the schema name and the environment for where your bot is, and that will go through, and now it's embedded in the app correctly, and now we can ask the bot whatever we have. So this is my event management bot, so I have it different topics for things like being able to know when do these events start, stuff that people might want to ask about an event here, which you can return that information. We might want to know everyone's favorite question, is there any free swag or anything that we get from going to the event? We can ask about that. And then of course, are you going to feed me? Will there be free lunch or anything like that? And there you go. So now we're just interacting with that PVA bot natively in our Power App, which is really cool. Okay, a lot to cover, so I know I'm going a little fast. So if there's any questions at all, please raise your hand or post something in the chat and just let me know along the way and we'll get those answered. So another one that has going to Power Automate land now, that's kind of been around for a little bit since late last year, is describe it and AI builds it and format by example. So I want to kind of touch on what this functionality can do with us. So you'll see a new option here on the create menu for describe it to design it. So if you haven't tried this out, it's basically kind of doing a bit of what we did with the Power App just earlier there, where we can put in a simple message, a string of what we want to automate with a workflow, like copy attachments from an email into OneDrive, right? So whatever the scenario might be. And again, it's able to recognize that natural language that we put in, and it generates a suggested flow schema for us. So we see the triggers when a new email arrives, for each action that goes through the files, since there could be multiple attachments, and then a create file action for OneDrive. So we can see it kind of has this authenticate in the connectors. We can map to a folder path. And then when we click create flow, it takes us to that traditional experience that we're used to when we're creating a flow here. So we can fill out any other information that we have. So this really, especially if you're just getting started with Power Automate, you can see how this is going to help a lot of people kind of get past that initial hurdle that there might be for creating a flow and not even knowing what they need, because they might not even know, like browsing the templates, exactly what they need, or it's just a more natural way to be able to interact and get a flow started. So we can do some of this mapping here within the flow, map to the file content. Now this alone is cool, but the thing personally that I think I have found the most valuable of some of this AI functionality that we see here is with the new format data by examples functionality. So I use this quite a lot. I mean, even though I've been doing Power Automate for years, writing expressions, sometimes I forget the syntax or, the expressions and things like that. So this has really made that way easier. So a common thing that we might want to do is format a date. So you see just previously I selected the receive date of the email. Now I can use this format by example AI capability to put in the way that I know the data comes. So it's a date and time kind of in that way, and then how I want the data to come out. So maybe I only want to extract the date from that and have kind of a longer month format in that. So it gives me a list of examples of desired outputs that I might have. All I have to do is click generate expressions, and it generates the expression for me that I need to use in my flow. And the even cooler thing is I don't have to guess and do a whole run of my flow to make sure that this expression works correctly, because it has a built-in testing thing here. I can put in a test value and it shows me the output, so I can be assured that it's going to work correctly. And then I just click apply, and bam, now that formula, that expression is there, and it's going to apply into my file name. So, and it's not just for date times. I think a lot of the demos that are out there show kind of that as a typical example. We can do that, say, on like an email field as well. So it can be for text information too. So if we want to extract like the domain from an email, or just maybe like the first name from an email in this case, I can again put in my example value from like the email field and the desired output. So just the value before the @ and I can have multiple ones. So if I want to make sure, whether it's at Gmail or it's a .com or a .net, and it'll generate the expression for me. And again, the built-in testing here that we can do as well to make sure that it's getting the output that we need. So this, if you haven't played with it, don't sleep on this. This has helped me tremendously and saved me a lot of like just trying to remember and, binging, Googling time to remember some expressions for this. Again, we can apply that and as an expression there. And then now we have the date and the name for the file name here. Definitely check that one out. Now, another thing though, of course, everything has to have a Copilot now, and that includes Power Automate. So this was announced. Now there hasn't, this isn't released yet to where you can kind of start doing anything with it, but it was announced in a blog post. So Power Automate Copilot, again, the intention here to give you kind of the multi-turn step-by-step conversation for describing your process. So we can say, create a private Teams channel with an urgent support issue when an issue is received, and add the account team to that, right? And that can go through very similar to what we saw in Power Apps and suggest the flow. So it's kind of like the describe it to design it, just even better, kind of the next evolution of describe it to design it with a cool editor experience, the conditions, and it can do even more stuff that we're seeing there. So again, Copilot to the rescue here is going to unlock and make things just even easier inside of Power Automate. And then now what's going above and beyond what we already had in Describe to Design It is that panel on the right-hand side to tweak the flow as you go along. So I don't have to just kind of be dumped off into the traditional edit experience for the flow. I have the Copilot along with me to make any of these changes, like we saw, same thing we saw in Power Apps when we were tweaking the table design. So really cool. I'm looking forward to this one kind of being released and being able to get my hands on it more for sure. Now, one of the things that the most recent ones that I thought was really, really cool was with AI Builder. So I think just a couple weeks ago, not too long ago, they released their AI model, OpenAI model for AI Builder. So, I mean, the sky's really the limit on what we can do with this. So anything that we can do practically in OpenAI, we can do with this model. So let's take a look at what it looks like and how we get to it. So if we go over to Power Automate, we're going to go to AI Builder and the Explorer, and we'll see a new pre-built model for this. So it's the Azure OpenAI service. So we can do things like create text and all that. So this shows you an example of all the things that we can do with this, from summarizing text, responding to complaints, even creating and authoring blog posts, fact checking. So this one was pretty cool. It gives you a sample instructions, basically what you'll pass into the Azure OpenAI service to tell it what you want the GPT to do. So I can put in a question here, like is Bigfoot real? And so we're kind of telling it here to just give a short answer like yes, no, or unknown if it doesn't know if that's true or false. So proves my my theory that Bigfoot might be real because it responded to unknown there. So you can see just kind of how that works and test it real time right here inside of AI Builder. So I can change this to something else to see if we get maybe a little better response there. Like is the Mandela effect real? I know I've suffered from this before. And then we'll see, it gives us a little longer response here now, letting us know it's not real. It's just when a large number of people share false memories of past events. So we can kind of test out these different models that we have here. So that's the fact-checking Q&A bot. Another one that we have that I found really helpful in some of my workflow processes and automations is the summarized text. I've been using this one a lot as of late to summarize like meeting transcripts and things like that for follow-ups to meetings. I mean, so many use cases that you have for this. So I just put in a bunch of long text that's kind of talking about what large language models are that I don't want to read through. I just want a nice summary of that. So I gave it some instructions to summarize it in like a paragraph. And bam, there you go. I tested it out, and there's a short kind of paragraph of information that summarizes all that long block of text that I just pasted in to let me know what a large language model is. And the cool thing about the AI Builder stuff is we can use this within a flow or within a Power App too. So we can do any kind of automation that you can imagine. So maybe as soon as an email is received, we could automatically summarize that and notify someone in Teams or whatever it might be, as well as in a Power App. So let's take a look at an example of using this inside of a Power App here. So maybe I want to do some kind of blog scheduling. So that's one of the things that we can do with the Azure OpenAI is actually have it author complete blog posts for us based off of an input of a topic that we get. So I'm going to go to my connectors and simply add in the Azure OpenAI service AI model as a data source here for me to use. And then now on my generate button, once I have that in there, I can simply call that connector. So we'll go to create text with GPT. And then we'll do the dot there, and then we'll have it predict. And then we'll paste in some information. So I want to have it, first of all, I need to give it some instructions. So, you know, you're a blog authoring master, whatever I want to say here, write a blog about this subject. So we'll type that in there, and then we'll dynamically pass in the value of the text input that we have in the Power App here. So once we get this typed out, and then we'll type in the text input one.text. And then we can even put additional instructions if we want. So we can get as specific as we want. We get the best results if we're as detailed and specific as we can be. So I can say something like, and write it at a 10th grade reading level to really narrow it down. And I see someone responses in Marvin, the sarcastic robot style is my favorite. Yeah, so you can have it write in different styles like that. I love that. That's a good one. And then also I'm specifying here that it should be no more than a 5-minute read. So if you want to have kind of a short and concise answer, that's something that you can do. So now that's going to call out and do that. Now I just need to put it in some kind of variable so that I can see what the results is like and how it's returned. So I'm going to just put that in a variable and do a dot to get the actual text that's returned from this call here. And then we'll bind that. I just have a label below here. So I'm going to set that to the variable, and we'll see how this works. Cool. And then, yeah, the limit for this, it's higher. It is 5,000 characters. So it's higher than like what you see in Bing, like to Ben's point there in the chat as well. So I want to do a blog in this test scenario here on Power Apps. So we're just going to click generate, and you'll see it's actually, to me, it seems pretty fast for how fast it returns all this information here. So here's a blog based off of the description that we have here explaining what Power Apps is. Should be at a 10th grade reading level and fairly succinct here. So it's a 5-minute read. And I mean, it looks pretty good. So now I can just, continue on with my app and schedule this out and should be good to go. So that's just how easy it is. And the same thing, again, we can do inside of Power Automate. So one of my favorite things to do here is just to automatically summarize some like longer emails. So we could go and do a search for the Outlook trigger. So when a new email is added here. There we go. And then we'll go to create. And then we'll just add in a new step here and we'll find that Azure OpenAI AI Builder model. So it's actually was the first one that shows up there now. There we go with GPT. And then again, so we always have to give it instructions of what we want it to do, and then we can pass in dynamic values. So I'm just going to say, summarize the following text for me. And then if we can give it whatever detailed instructions we want, and then I'll pass in the body of the email message, in this case here, from our dynamic content directly into the instructions. So click on there and we'll go into the body. There it is. All right. And then, if we need any more other instructions, we can do that. But I think this is pretty good. So we'll go in and we'll add a new step. And now I just want to maybe just send me a Teams notification that's like, here's the summary of the email that you received. So we're going to go into send a message as a flow bot, I think is the one that we want here, or post message in a channel. See, I always forget which one it is. I think yeah, that one. And then we can post as a flow bot, and I'll send that to the chat with the flow bot and to myself here as that pops up. And then in the message, we'll just say, here's your email summary. And then we'll pull in that generated text from our GPT Azure OpenAI service call that we have there. So once we have that all done and we save that flow, I just send a test email to myself there so I can see that I got an email about assistance being needed. That's like just too long for me to want to have to read. So hopefully my automation kicked in. So we're going to hop on over to Teams. I think I do have a notification in there. And there's the chat with the Flowbot. And there's a very short, kind of concise summary letting me know that it looks like I need to deliver some project by May 10th. And I'm good to go. Now I can take action on that. And of course, I could provide a link back to email and whatever I need to do. So lots we can do here, and we can go into the flow and just make sure that I got kicked off and all that. So just too many possibilities with this to even mention. I'll briefly go over to like this same model. OpenAI stuff can be used in Power Automate Desktop as well for RPA. So kind of a lesser known thing as well that was released here. So anything that we want to do with Azure OpenAI, we can do inside of Power Automate Desktop as well, like getting information from a website. And, there's the AI Builder preview there. So we can just drag that GPT Azure OpenAI service action, give it the same instructions, just like we did in our cloud flow, pass in some information there, and save that, and should be good to go. So we can have that write out to a CSV. So get the data from a website, generate all that from Azure OpenAI. So we'll go in here, let it do its thing, run through that, and then it should output that to the CSV. So there you go. So pretty cool. That's used in all those tools as well. Okay, now last thing that I want to touch on is we also have this capability in Power Virtual Agents. So we've seen it in Apps, Automate, and now it's in Virtual Agents. The one that I love the best is the Conversation Booster. This is super valuable because now when you go and you create with the new experience in PVA, you see this option to boost your conversation with GPT, and you can put in a website. So like rather than having to go painstakingly think of every topic that someone could ask, your bot, if some of that information is on your website, like your store hours, your store locations, and all of that stuff, you can just have GPT go out and pull that information for you just by connecting your website like you saw here. So now that that's created my bot, you'll see this new choose site option once your bot is created. So if at any point you need to change that URL, you can, and you can only assign it to a single URL. So just keep that in mind. And then we can choose like the moderation as well. So like how strict do you want the bot to be? You know, do you want it to be more accurate but have potentially fewer responses, or like maybe slightly less accurate but more responses, things like that. So you can tweak all of those settings there and just give that a save. And so right now with the topic, or with this bot, I haven't added any topics. It's just all the boilerplate standard stuff that you get. I'm going to build a bot basically by purely linking it to my website that has some information, in this case about my brewery. So again, by linking it, I can test my bot and I want to know what the hours are. And the cool thing is you'll see that it references back to where it got that information on your site. And the other thing that you'll notice below is it says surface with Azure OpenAI. It's just a good responsible AI practice to always let the user know that the answers they're getting are from AI. So that's included as well. I can even ask it detailed things like what beer has the highest alcohol volume, and it will give me that information, and I can fact check it against the link that it provides on the site. So like anything I need to know, I didn't have to create a single topic. I just pointed it to my website, and GPT, AI, and all that is handling all it for me. Now it's not perfect. Like I tried to do something like where are you located? It didn't really understand what I was saying there. So I have to kind of tweak my, my prompt a little bit to get it what I need. So I can say something like, what is your address? So it can know it's a key on a little bit better. And then it was able to find that. So you can just see like how easy this is to get started and how it's going to just make building bots even faster inside of PVA. Really cool feature that I've leveraged here. And even like what kind of fruit beers do you have, like fruity beers and anything that you want, it can handle there. All right, and then that's not the only thing though. So we do have a true native Copilot as well inside of PVA. So you can do things like, and it looks like, let me actually go over to a demo for that. There we go. Because my embedded video didn't work, but good thing I had it pulled up. So one of the things, if we go over to topics, let's leave this for now. And we'll go to topics for this bot. So it's that same beer bot. Now, when you create a topic, you'll see a new option for Create with Copilot. And so now we can, give the name a topic, like maybe we want to have a topic for ordering beer, and we can simply describe what we want. So let someone order a beer, choosing from common types of beer. And sometimes this can be a little slow, so hopefully since this one is a live one, it'll work cool pretty fast. Cool. So you can see what all this did for me. So not only did it recommend some trigger phrases of what people might ask for this particular topic, but it also provided me some nodes for questions. So, and it gave me options for the types of beer, and then a message as well. So it might be not everything I need. So again, we can interact with the Copilot like we just saw with Power Apps and Power Automate to tweak this as we need. So maybe I noticed there's an option missing for like a sour beer. So I can say something like add an option to the beer type or sour, and click update, and that will make a real-time update for me, hopefully fairly quickly. Yep, and there you go. And then now that's ready to go. So, again, just keep tweaking it as much as we need, like we saw with the other Copilots, and we are good to go. And then, of course, it can add other things as well. So I can say add a question for how many beers they want. Whatever that might be, if I can type. And it can add other nodes to this kind of conversation path as well. So I think we've officially covered all of the Copilots so far for Power Platform and everything that I wanted to cover there. I did want to make sure I left plenty of time if there are questions about everything that I showed, if there are any at all, but that's pretty much all that I had for you all.
April, that was fantastic. I think it's just exciting to see all the AI goodness and Copilot goodness coming our way. I think everybody's just can't wait to get their hands on it. I'm sure everybody's signed up for previews and just can't wait to get it in our tenants so we can start using it. I did share a link for the AI Builder Copilot, but I can pull up the links for the Power Apps Copilot as well. Do you have any idea on when it would be available for a public preview?
I haven't heard yet. I have been asking like when, but as far as I know, there's no timeline at the moment, so it's still having to sign up for that that private preview at the moment, but I'm sure we'll, as soon as we hear anything otherwise, we'll let everyone know.
And then also with the Power Apps Copilot, I noticed a couple of things. I think it not only drops sample data, but it also tries to map the data type based on your prompt, correct? Like
Yeah,
you said
it
it's a date
does.
field. Yeah, it does a fantastic job of that because then you have your data structure laid out for you already in Dataverse, and you don't have to worry about the schema. You just provide the use case that you'd want, and you already have the schema set out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it does all that for you. And as you saw too, like even if like the data type isn't correct, you can change it real time too with the Copilot also. So yeah, I mean, it does so much for you there. It's really powerful. And then I was just gonna get, if I can get it pulled up here too, while I'm on here. I'm
We
just
do
gonna
have a
walk you through.
question in the chat, April, while you're pulling that up.
Yeah.
Ben had a question on, is the plan for Dataverse to be the only database that works with Copilot, or will Azure SQL, SharePoint, etc. eventually be sources you can select?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I believe I haven't heard otherwise that it's not going to be anything other than Dataverse. I mean, I think that's just like the easiest or one to control because you kind of see it with Express Design, right? So when we look through that, it creates a Dataverse table for you. I don't know for sure like what's going to happen, but I haven't heard anything different that it's not gonna be just Dataverse. Um, see. Well, it looks like it's not working for me live. Like this environment's just a bit not working at the moment, so I can't show what I was going to show. But yeah, but what you were saying before, for sure, when we can, it does develop do the schema real time there.
Anyone else
I'll
have
just-
any questions? Feel free to unmute or drop the question in the chat.
Okay, I see one more there from Debbie. So is there any opportunity to have AI Builder or Copilot added to a developer tenant? So I think like with anything with these like once it does get rolled out more, like you should be able to add it on to a dev tenant like you can in any of these preview features. But I don't think right now that you can in a developer tenant with a private preview. No.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
thought
I will say,
the
oh, go ahead.
speed at which this was turned around and added for preview was amazing.
Yeah, I was
It's
touching on my point, what I was going to say.
yeah. I mean, it's hard to get your brain around how revolutionary this is going to be to enable people to create so much value for their companies just by being good at asking questions and prompting to create an application. This to me is like a moment in time that you'll remember in your career.
Oh yeah, totally agree. I mean, the speed at which this stuff, I mean, it's literally just a matter of like weeks, basically, or sometimes even days where some of the stuff was been announced. So like, I guess that's the one thing I was going to point out is like, stay on top of this because like so much stuff is being announced like so fast, and there's like conferences coming up too. So who knows like what be announced at like Build in May and all that stuff. So it's just the speed at which they're constantly adding and interjecting all this AI into everything is crazy. It's definitely a moment in time.
On that topic about, keeping up to date, I mean, you do a great job of that and pushing out stuff on YouTube and other things. Are there other colleagues of yours that you recommend people follow to keep up to date with the Power Platform?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of resources, like we try to do that, like, myself, Daniel Laskowitz, we try to keep people up to date on our socials, and then with the Low Code Revolution, the Power Cat team, at Power Cat Live, they're pretty good at having like the PMs on talking about new features, like when they're released. And of course, all the folks in the community as well, like the Shanes and everything, like they're all pretty good at, as soon as something's announced, like creating content around that. Lisa and all of that. So yeah, those are kind of my go-tos there. I see another question in the chat. Are there any planned connections to Loop? That's a Yeah, that's a cool idea. Not that I've heard of, but that's cool.
Yeah, I think they did announce. I did see an announcement for Loop come out. I think this was last week. Trying to find the link so I can post that in the chat.
I know there's like
But
the
it
Loop
was,
app, but
yeah, yeah, I'm gonna find the, but it was an experimental feature, just like how we're seeing
oh,
it
cool.
on most had the capability of doing, I think, Copilot in Loop. See if I can find that. Yep, I think I have that link here. Yeah, I think
Very
it's
cool.
it's pretty cool to see like how it's you know, fanning out and stretching into all applications in the suite of Microsoft Stack.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just like outside of the Power Platform stuff, I've really liked like the Bing integration, you know. I mean, I'm using that quite heavily in myself too, for everything. Like the fact that I don't know if you know, you can summarize a video for you, like with the Edge, like if you're using that in Bing, like you can have it on a YouTube video and you can ask real-time questions about the video, like who is this person speaking? Like tell me more about this person. It's like it's really powerful.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when we're talking about the timing of things, I was just thinking to myself, maybe, you know, maybe we should just, you know, take a step back and realize that we're probably the first generation to be a part of this whole next generation AI phase of these advancements coming our way. So it's exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, for sure. I saw the comment in the chat too. Yeah, so there's like I think we're Clippy is back and more powerful than ever.
Yep. Maybe we can, Clippy will be our co-pilot. Let's Clippy some questions.
Yep.
Anyone have any thoughts or other comments or questions that you'd like to share? This is your time to get all your questions out. We have April here. She's been closely working with all of these tools. So now's our time to get all your feedback and comments and any questions that you have.
Yeah, I have a question about the business data. So, oh, sorry.
Hello. With Copilot, I can expand a bullet point into a paragraph to pretend that I've written the paragraph. And the other person saying, with Copilot, I can summarize a paragraph to a bullet point so I can pretend that I've read it.
I mean, one of the things that clicked with me when you were showing the email example is doing it the other way. And I don't know if that would work here with this tool set or just using like Bing in general. And what I mean by that is before you send an email out to somebody, let's say you have a long email, asking it to summarize the email for you to make it more readable for people to send it out, as opposed to like after the fact when you receive it and summarizing the email.
Yeah, I mean, all that's possible. It's just the instructions that you pass in. I mean, there's anything basically that you can do with, you know, GPT and the different prompts that you could think of. Yeah, as far as like summarizing or like, you know, simplifying like a big block of text or, you know, anything like that. It just depends on the prompt that you pass in into that, and you can do that with that.
And then when you were showing the AI builder part of things and the instructions that you were giving the bot, that in essence is how you're programming the bot.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, so it's just a different
that's
way
like
to think about programming.
Yeah, micro version here. So now you're just programming is prompting. I mean, that's rather amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the prompt engineering, right? It's probably like
Yeah.
going to be the next big career path, I guess, for the future. Yeah.
Like a new skill you can add to your list of things,
Yep.
prompting.
Yep.
So is the plan to release more about this come the Power Platform Conference? Is it probably be a lot more stuff about it at that conference in Vegas?
I'm sure, like, you know, as you say, this stuff is constantly evolving. I think you'll see, as we saw with this, like the just kind of one-off, you know, like announcements probably, like as stuff just kind of gets preview. But then, yeah, I'm sure at the big events and stuff, there'll be like just more information and about some of these things. But I think it'll just be a kind of an ongoing whiff, I think, like what we've seen so far, at least of announcements and things coming down. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to get a better idea on the cadence, right? Of
Yeah,
the
I think
innovation
it's
and
just
how
so fast.
quickly.
There's
Yeah,
there's
just
no real standard
fire
cadence right
hydrant.
now.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting for it to be used as an internal chatbot for the company, for big organizations, as for example, knowledge article, or trying to find who would be the right person or which department would be dealing with what query, etc. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many use cases, and I mean, I'm trying to too. Like, if anyone like you're using this in your business, or you start using some of these features, I'd love to hear like what you end up using it for and what you think of the tools as they start to get more widely rolled, kind of rolled out too.
Has this been rolled out to Power Pages yet?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, just apps, Automate, and virtual agents, and some of the stuff in Power BI with like the DAX formula stuff.
Yep.
Yep. Anything else?
In the chat, if anybody, feel free to unmute, ask the question, or drop a question in the chat.
It was a lot.
How would the pricing work
It was.
in terms of tokens and words? Any clarity on the pricing would be helpful.
So everything like that I know so far, like the Copilot stuff, I mean, it is creating a Dataverse table on the back end. So I mean, that's going to require, like, from the Power Apps perspective, like the paid Power Apps licensing. Obviously, AI Builder, that's its own standalone licensing add-on for AI Builder functionality. The Power Automate stuff, like the script to design it, is included in there, but I don't know if they've said anything about pricing for the Copilot thing yet that I've heard. Yeah, so just kind of the same basic licensing, that model, that way there shouldn't be any extra add-on or anything like that.
Thank you.
It's just
Yeah, I think to kind of reiterate on that too, Geetha, I mean, this is really kind of like a bleeding edge demo. So all the stuff about pricing and everything like that, will come as it makes it through all the preview stages and everything. I mean, this is really at the very beginning of this. And so it's extremely proud to get a glimpse at this. Really thankful for you being able to come and do this.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me. Well, I love this stuff. I'm been in it every day trying different scenarios, so it's cool to talk with other people about it and show it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for taking the time to join us. And I know it was a lot of information, a lot of good information there for sure. But I think it's just a matter of time, and everybody's just waiting for it to light up in their tenants and get their hands dirty.
Yep. Hopefully sooner than later. So.
If there are no other questions, I thought I'd throw up the user group QR code there. If any of you here want to continue to join, and we'll continue to have more sessions every month. We want to host one every month, and we appreciate all your support and taking the time to join and support the user group. So we look forward to seeing all of you next month. And so there's the QR code if you want to scan, and if you're not already a member, please do try and join the user group, so that way you can stay up to date on future events and announcements. And looking forward to seeing everyone next month. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight.